never actually explained this like this so well. I'm surprised.
This is awesome. Yeah.
Okay, now, you see, okay, so now that's renunciation, and there's four objects then to contemplate. They're called the four thoughts that turn the mind. Actually, today, when talking with my friend in who lives in Nanaimo, he urged me to get people, a lot of people here doing this. He said that's very important because that will really, really help people. And if one is doing meditation, let's say, like that kind of thing with watching the breath, then one would do this in the beginning of a session, or one can do this on its own. Even in Thailand and Burma, they always talk about four protective meditations to do before you do Vipassana, which is the thought of impermanence and death, recollection of the qualities of the Buddha, the the parts of the body, and the loving kindness. This is to establish a kind of strength of mind. So in the practice, if you have a lot of distractions, you'll keep going, and you won't, do it for crazy reasons. So this could be done as a contemplation on its own, or combined with any practice that you're doing at the beginning. And actually, a lot of people have learned Vipassana in North America. They don't always teach that. This is really important. Okay, now, then the next thing is a literal translation of a word that's in Sanskrit called bodhicitta, mind of enlightenment. That's the literal meaning, but it means much more than that. It is a term that calls it, you could say, the heart of enlightenment, or its essence. And there's two kinds of bodhicitta, which are going to be discussed here: relative and absolute. The relative bodhicitta is the wish to become a Buddha for the benefit of others, in order to help others, to accomplish the spiritual path, in order to gain the ability to help others, to help the others who are in this cycle. You see, if you see that you're in the cycle, everyone else is in the same boat, always doing crazy things and making trouble for themselves. So you then want to do something for them, and then to help them out too. And that's what this describes, and describes why, the next part. First, if you have this renunciation, you see that you're in this, but everyone else is in the same boat. And don't think that you're no good and that you're too stupid to do stuff to help others. No. The fact that you know that you're in that is enough. That's an important thing. If you have a small mind, then you're just caught up in your own suffering. And then you just want to do stuff for yourself. That's one thing. But really, this says if you see that you're in that boat, you should develop that motivation. Not to go around converting, or changing people over to a different way of thinking, or showing them of the wonders of generating renunciation. Not in that kind of silly way. But if you perfect yourself, well, the best way would be to do more and more spiritual practice yourself, get better and better at it. First, by practicing, you will help others. Even that very act of meditation will help others in the environment. And the more and more you do and work with yourself, the more and more you'll be able to benefit the other people that you know in a very direct way. And then they, in turn, you'll affect hundreds, thousands of people just through that. You could, just by the fact that each one of us knows 5 or 6 people, and each one of them knows 5 or 6 people, and then all of them and all of them and all of them. That's a very, I think, good thing. Anyway, if renunciation has been developed, you see, if you just have renunciation, what this is saying is that you can't become a full Buddha. You could maybe get to some lower realization, but not a full understanding. If you don't have the mind of bodhicitta, of this mind of enlightenment, you won't get it all. That's the relative bodhicitta, is that the wish to become a Buddha in order to benefit others, and to benefit to become a savior for all the beings in the universe. You will become that. A wild idea, eh? Very big aspiration. And then the absolute bodhicitta is the absolute truth, which is can't be really put in words. And the path to that absolute truth is of course can be defined in some level, but it's much, I don't know, mysterious. But no, not using that word. But it's talking about your inherent nature, your perfection, inherently, and coming to understand that as absolute truth. We'll discuss that later. Now, for enunciation has been developed, if it is not possessed by the mind of enlightenment, it does not become the cause of the perfect bliss of unsurpassed enlightenment. Therefore, the wise generate the supreme mind of enlightenment. Now, how to generate the mind of enlightenment? Okay, this tells you, in summary, swept away by the current of the four powerful rivers, tied by the tight bonds of karma so hard to undo, caught in the iron net of self-grasping, completely enveloped by the total darkness of ignorance, endlessly reborn in cyclic existence, ceaselessly tormented by the three sufferings, thinking that all mothers are in such a condition, generate the supreme mind of enlightenment. Okay, so I'm not sure what the four powerful rivers are, but what this is talking about is this. I'll try and explain it in my own way, and then we could look at this just from what comes to my head. There's one sort of protocol for developing this bodhicitta, and it's called 7 steps cause and effect. It comes from a master in India from about 1,500 years ago. I think that's its main source. It has 7 steps, and if we really wanted to dissect it as doing it as a contemplation, I could spend a day or so too. But I'll just go through it briefly. First, we developing equanimity to all the beings, that is, to people who we like, dislike, and are neutral to. We have to develop that first. Then we contemplate that all the beings that exist have at one time been born as our mother, or our father, or our sister and brother, that we have a connection to every single being in existence in this fashion. And then what we do is reflect on the kindness of the mother, or of our brothers or sisters who've helped us since the smallest age and looked after us. That's the next thing, reflect on the kindness. And then we think maybe have a visualization of a mother or someone we like very much when they're very old and they can't move around and they have trouble, or maybe they're going to be at the top of the steps and almost fall down. And then what we do is we go and we help them to make sure that they don't fall, to hurt themselves. And we think about that. Then we think, okay, now thinking, okay, maybe it would be that we would think first of the mother and their kindness. Then we think that all beings have been the mother. And then we think about that something like we want to repay that kindness. Right? We have to repay that kindness to our mother. And then, if we contemplate that all beings have been like that to us at some point in the past, then we need to help them all. We contemplate a loving kindness to them, which is the wish that they have a good situation always and that they be well and happy. That's the same kind of wish we want for ourselves, right? So we want that for everyone. And since everyone has been our mother, we want that for everyone. I'm not doing this in the right order, but just I'm putting it out there. Compassion is another step of that, and that's the notion. That's the wish that none of these, to develop that, just go to a place where they're going to kill lots of animals if they were to take them to be slaughtered. Or people say that in India they're not in such a nice situation. Sometimes the animals aren't treated well, and that sick and ill animals, or other places like that, and that we don't want to see them suffer. Okay, we don't want to see them suffer, and all the beings have been our mother. So then, in that sense, this is a kind of, in a way, we could say contradicts what I was talking about before with not having attachment and maybe only having equanimity. What you do, but it's not attachment to just people you like. It's attachment to everyone. One should develop an attachment to everyone because they are like our mother to us. So that every ant, every being, every cat, dog, human is like our mother. And that we're attached to them like our mother, sister, our brother. And that we need to extend our kindness to each one of them. So we need to help them all, to do something for them. And this is for each of us our own responsibility. This is much more profound, I think, than just having loving kindness and compassion, which is just a wish. This is our responsibility to help them, to save them from their own, from things because our mothers are having lots of problems. And our mothers have lots of suffering. And we certainly would want to do something for them. And we have attachment to all of them. And so what's the best thing? And what this is in this context is to carry out with this path to the best of our abilities so that we'll have the capacity to solve their suffering, so that each one of us will be to help others to be liberated and show them a path. Now, right? So they're tied by the tight bonds of karma, so hard to undo, and they're caught in the iron net of self-grasping. And they're enveloped. They are reborn endlessly, and they're ceaselessly tormented. That generate that mind. Now, how do you know that you've generated it? Well, in brief, if like the mother whose cherished son has fallen into a pit of fire, and who experiences even 1 second of his suffering as an unbearable eternity, your reflection on the suffering of all mother sentient beings has made it impossible for you to bear their suffering for even 1 second. And the wish seeking enlightenment for their sake arises without effort. Then you have realized the supreme precious mind of enlightenment. Is that clear, Sukha? There? Do you want a copy too? Or do you know it already anyway, partly? I think you do. Then don't be, listen, us grown-ups don't mind about the mirror. That's only a thing that happens for little kids. They go and scold them for breaking it. Parents do. With this club that you're now in, of big people now, the big people, and you're 15 and you're a monk, we don't do that with each other. We're actually quite tolerant with each other. Yeah, so you don't need to be frightened. And that mirror was already broken and it was put in the wrong place. It was here when she rented it. It's not hers. Okay, so relax. We'll just clean up the glass after. It was not because she's the only one here. She didn't put it away, out of the way, because she's the only person who goes to use that washroom. Nobody else goes there. So now today, it just happened that you got in there and you opened the door, right? Which is a good thing to do. And then the mirror was right behind the door. Okay, so does that make sense? Does it make sense? Or is there something wrong with it? Something that doesn't make sense? Or is there some... Please don't think of this as the God's honest truth and that it's correct. This would certainly be not good, not a good thing. One should doubt it and one should say it's junk. And let's take it apart and look at it and see, well, is it even right for you, maybe? I don't know. No? Okay, well. The reason, what?
I was just going to say, I think sometimes people think that enlightenment is some big concept out there that is not reachable. So for me, the way you've just described it makes it a lot clearer. It something that I get.
Oh, I didn't know that I did that. Oh, okay,
Yes.
that we did that. No, that's what you understood. Yeah, that's all. This is just each person, all of us can understand anything we read in a different way, according to our particular need at the time. And it's not, let's say, someone like myself or anyone else doing some sort of talk or examining something like this knows what's going on in anyone's mind. Not at all. It's just an interdependence, and it's the working out of something that is sort of, some would say, inherent in the nature of reality is compassion. That its nature is that. So that's why we're here, and that's why you're understanding it, because compassion is almost the quality of everything, we could say. And so that it's helpful, that it makes it so that you can understand it's not anything it just happens, sort of by itself. It's a kind of a synchronicity that has happened with me here in Kamloops a lot. Nothing particularly that I do. Without the wisdom, realizing ultimate reality, so without that kind of wisdom, even though you've generated renunciation in the mind of enlightenment, those two previous things, you cannot cut the root cause of circling. Therefore, attempt the method to realize dependent arising. So that's what he's going to talk about here. Now, there's this concept in the Buddhist teaching of, in Pali and Thailand, they'll call it anatta. And Mahayana countries talk about emptiness. It's the same thing. But one of the best ways to understand it, at least in his point of view, is to understand interdependence. Now, and that means that, to put it in a simple way, this will sound sort of like a silly physics on a very low level, and maybe it's too simple. But when you open the door to come in here, or when you pick up your foot and stomp it on the floor, or when you do anything, let's say, okay, I've used this example of the flame, which was shown to me, but when you open the door, or when the flame goes from from a match to the candle, or when let's say the alarm there goes off, when is the precise time? What is the precise time when something started that happening? When did it start? Now, there's the common sense idea that we have the cause and effect, and that things arise in order. And then there's some people have started to look, of course, in the early 50s, people start to say that this notion of cause and effect is kind of silly, because actually cause and effect, it leaves out feedback mechanisms, if you know what I mean, where cause, like a thermostat. Well, why does a thermostat turn on the furnace? It's because it's cold. Why does it get cold? It's because the thermostat didn't turn on the furnace. Okay, right? And then, if we light the cigarette lighter, and then we put it to the candle, when exactly did the flame go to the candle, and what made it happen? Well, okay, then, we normally say, of course, it's that the flame goes to the candle because we lit the thing, the cigarette lighter, and then it moves. Oh, well, moves, or there's an interdependence, right? That's what Buddhism, why they talk about rebirth. Or why is it that we have one thought after another? Because the one thought conditions the other thought. But there's more to it than that. What's being said there is that there are so many hundreds and thousands of causes and conditions that come together to make it possible for me to use the cigarette lighter, that my muscles are working, that my mind makes the command, that there is a cigarette lighter, that I have arrived here today, which is a result of so many other things. And just in each moment, if we could say, then the notion of separate things that block each other and exist individually and independently from their own side falls apart when you examine it. And so we could say that what we call our experience is more like one system rather than a bunch of different things all at war with each other that block each other. So if once we understand that, then we start to see about no self from one point of view. Then there aren't separate discrete things at war with each other, and of course this applies on an individual level to ourselves. That we think that we stand on this, are here, inside, and that there's lots of things out there, outside, and that everything outside is separate from us. And that when we look at what we call the outside, we're looking at something that's independent of us, entirely, independent of the perceiver, which if we examine that, partly we find that false. And for instance, this, we call it a microphone. This is another kind of elegant kind of argument to show you this that has been used for thousands of years. To a dog, this won't be a microphone. To a cat, I don't know what it would be. Certainly to an insect, it isn't. To a human, depending upon where they live and what they've known, they won't know what its function is. So what is it? That's a self. That's the microphone. This anatta, it means that this is a label. The microphone-ness is a label. If I cut it up into parts, where's the microphone? Well, if I cut this off and I cut this into parts, then where's the microphone? It has parts. And so there's no microphone. Then if I cut it in half, there's plastic that's in a shape with wires. Okay, then where's the wire? If I cut the wire up into parts, then it will be pieces of metal. Okay, so we say that's a piece of metal. If I cut that up into, it's a piece of metal an inch long that can cut. If I cut that up, where's the metal? Then there might be, atoms and other parts and other parts. So there isn't anything there. That doesn't say that there's nothing. There's a function, but it's a label, too. So that's a little bit about anatta, or no self, or emptiness. Now, if we understand this, see, even on an intellectual level, this is understanding this deeply is the result of meditation practice, based on the other things. Even if we understand this on an intellectual level, it will help to cut defilements and make it more difficult for us to become trapped in a lot of crazy neurotic reactions to the things that happen to us every day, and our life will be much more sane because the crazy neuroses won't have a handle as much to grab onto. What? Good.
Is there a difference between ego and self?
It depends what you mean by them. No, both these things, I think they're the same. Okay. You see, that's a problem with this kind of thing. We have to go through the rest of the poem, but since I'm not sticking just to the poem now, I'm trying to explain it. With things like this that come out of Asia, both Hinduism and Buddhism have a problem in the way they explain things. They talk about ego attachment and ridding yourself of this. Now, the problem is, and we'll get into it more in the poem, and the thing is, if you think that there's something to get rid of, you will only make it bigger. You'll make more of it. If you start to understand, that is the point of this. That's what I was trying to say. That this notion of a selfness is a label, but that does not have a reference point to an actual item. Then you will understand that this isn't something to get rid of. This is a wrong understanding to transform. It isn't there to get rid of. So that when we do any spiritual practice, like, I remember the guy, I think his name was Janov, who had this book about primal scream therapy and talked about how these Asian traditions, they do lots of meditation in their huts for 10 years, 12 years, whatever. And that's why they're doing it, because they want to get rid of their self or their ego and to destroy it. Or that what we do is we put them in these monasteries and get them to do repetitive actions, right? And make them live simply and sleep in a simple bed and eat crummy food and do these meditations and these repetitive actions and obey a master, because we're trying to get them to cut this thing called a self, right? And that's bad. This is silly. This isn't teaching this at all. This isn't something that you can find as such, like in the way I said. So this isn't to get rid of something. This is to see how it exists. The self isn't something to get rid of. The self, as a discrete object, is not something that is there. What I am talking about is that our experience and that ours, we are as one system, and that I'm not that separate from you, and not from the air that I breathe and the streets I walk on. So that there isn't one to get rid of. Now, does that mean that someone who thinks like this is going to be, then how can I go to the store and do my laundry? I remember this Chogyam Trungpa gave this talk, and someone got up and asked him this. And this problem comes about because these things aren't explained clearly. It isn't about getting rid of anything. It's to understand how it exists. Of course it exists. Of course I go to the store, and as you do. And as everything else, they have a relative existence. They are impermanent, undergoing constant change. But they aren't fixed entities, like I said, that you can find. Where is the me? Where is the me of this? Where is the me of me? Does it mean that there's nothing there? No. But does it mean it means that it's a part of a whole? And that all the phenomena exist as interdependences, as part of an interdependence, rather than many discrete solid things that exist separately and are like at war with each other and that actually block each other. This would be borne out by science too, by people examining this. And so if we take that notion, apply it to objects, apply it to us, we can't find any solid thingness, but yet things do have a function. There are both. There's an interplay of that, both relative truth and what is called an ultimate truth. Does that make sense? Does that? I hope it does. I don't know. Okay. Does it? Or no. Good to think. Ask more about it. So, if you want, that's a real problem, because if you say that there's nothing there, that's really quite silly. I mean, if there was nothing there and all things are a dream, and dream-like maybe, then I mean, they do function. Otherwise, you get hit by a car, and we do get sick, and we do experience suffering. Someone who comes to understand this has a much lighter load. I do think they have a much lighter load. Then things aren't so heavy, right, Suga? They're not so heavy. That's with the mirror, they're not. No one is. We don't have, all of us, so much ego claims. We're not so nasty about things like that. We giggle, actually, most people do, because they've been through so much already. Why get too freaked out? Right? Yeah. Oh, but then, let's see, where were we? Okay, the grasping mind, and for whom any... Okay, the reason to meditate. Yeah, you won't be of benefit with this bodhicitta, with the wish to help the beings, unless you understand this. Because, maybe, I was just thinking, maybe you'll get burnout if you try and approach that bodhicitta unintelligently, because you'll think that there's a lot of discrete entities that you're going to try and help, and you'll be caught up too much in the solidity of the phenomena, and then you won't be able to help anybody. The reason to now, one who sees the cause and effect of all phenomena of both cyclic existence and the state beyond sorrow, that's nirvana or Buddhahood, as forever unbetraying, and for whom any object trusted in by the grasping mind has completely disappeared, has at that time entered the path pleasing the Buddhas. Let's look at this. So, that's talking about what I said about interdependence. This is infallible. And also, someone who understands cause and effect, like I described in the way that I did. There is a problem with sharing that with people and about emptiness. Some of the people, okay, I'm going to tell you. My friend, where Sukha lives in Lytton, told me about his teacher, Jyu Kennett Roshi. And a lady named Lenore Friedman was going around interviewing Buddhist teachers across North America and asking them, if you are an enlightened master, do you still follow the precepts of, we have 5 simple ones, and there are many more. Training yourself not to kill, training yourself not to steal, training yourself not to have false speech, not to steal, not taking that which is not given, training yourself not to take intoxicants of various sorts that dilute the mind, and training yourself not to engage in sexual misconduct, harming others through that. Does this apply to someone who's enlightened, who has transcended karma and cause and effect, supposedly transcended it? That's what people teach. That, and then she went around and asked all these different teachers, and all of them said, yeah, you transcend cause and effect, so you don't have to be so careful about these things. And then my friend went. My friend told me they went to his teacher, Jyu Kennett Roshi. She was a master, an English lady who was trained in Japan to be a Zen teacher, to be a teacher of Buddhism. And she came back to North America and taught here. And they asked her, she said, no, that's completely wrong. That's not right. Because if someone is enlightened, they are going to do those things. This idea of transcending is just first silly, that they would ever do things that we normally call immoral or harmful to others. They would not. Secondly, cause and effect is always true. Because things are impermanent, because the phenomena are interdependent, then karma and cause and effect works. If one is not careful with one's actions, one will have negative circumstances that will come to you. That is because the phenomena are, as I said, not solid, and there is an interdependence. If that wasn't the case and things were solid and blocked each other, then they would always remain the same, because they're always changing and we are dynamic beings also. Then cause and effect are important to be careful with. And so, someone who understands about emptiness and interdependence, about the dreamlike quality of phenomena and all that, is very careful with what they do. Their conduct would be as fine as the sand, and more careful than other people, because they don't understand it. People who don't know about this don't understand it and don't see that what you do has consequences. So that if I'm giving a class like this, and you're going around showing people things, you've got to be careful, for instance, with this, what you show them, and also your motive. If I show them something crazy or something not right, and they'll go off, show them something that's they could use to create more self-aggrandizement, or maybe that if they used it, they could harm others psychically, maybe something like that. That would not be a good thing to do. Then I would be participating in that. Everything we do has an effect. and an effect which will come back to us and will harm others. That is because we are a constantly changing thing, a stream of being, not a solid fixed entity. And that is also why we can transform ourselves. And that is why, if we perform virtues more and more, it will grow stronger. Otherwise, we would have to be total fatalists. I hope that makes sense. I think that's partly what he's saying. Cause and effect is also, as I said, not a linear thing, but circular. For instance, if you have a seed, where is the plant? Right? Where does the seed begin, the plant end? Where does the seed end, the plant begin? It's not. Things aren't fixed and solid. Now, for whom any object trusted in by the grasping mind has completely disappeared. The grasping mind wants to find something solid to hang on to in the midst of an ever-changing, ever-shifting flow, which is called, in Pali language and in Sanskrit, anicca, or impermanence, or in the deeper sense, our experience is a constant, ever-changing flow. And the grasping mind wants to stop the flow. And also wants to be stuck. Doesn't want to change. Doesn't want to grow up. Doesn't want to overcome obstacles. Wants to be stuck in a comfort. All of us want our comfort zone too. Right? We don't want to be challenged by the things that we experienced. And we also don't want to accept responsibility, maybe, too, that what we experience is partly because of what we've done. Right? And so then we want to stop it. And also we want to think, we want to have control, but we want to go about trying to get the control in the wrong way. We want to hold on, stop the river, dam it up. And then that will lead to a kind of death. So if we trust it, right, we have a grasping mind, we trust in objects. When that's completely disappeared, they've entered the path pleasing to the Buddhas. If the appearance of dependent relation, okay, that's our world of appearance, of dependent relationships. Like another, the things that we experience, like the things that this what we label as a microphone, or this that we see, is the seer, the object, and the subject, are they two different things? Is there an objectively correct world that I can determine with either my eyes, which may be imperfect, or with some kind of machine that might be more correct and that will, show me what it is directly? I think we can't. Our subject and the object are interdependent. So even scientists will say, I use this example a lot about Heisenberg, by performing an experiment you change the object by the act of observation. I am not saying that there is nothing, but I am saying that what we do experience is affected by who and what we are in our karmas from the past. This appearance of dependent relation, which is unbetraying, okay, this is an important point that Tsongkhapa likes to explain, and this is important if you want to carry through on what I've talked about and want to do it more. If the appearance, these appearances, the relative truth, what is called in Buddhist teaching relative truth, which is the world of appearances, right? And what I've talked about is some kind of absolute truth, or what people say, in our countries, and many philosophies make a difference between some kind of absolute truth, which is beyond suffering, and some kind of relative world, that they're two different things, and that the spiritual is a contradiction to the material, right? That our bodies and our desires are things to be rejected, and the spiritual is the thing to be accepted. So this world is a delusion, and there's something beyond it that's the absolute truth, right? They're kind of a contradiction. That's what they say. If you see that, you're kind of off, it's saying. The appearance of dependent origination, which is unbetraying, right? And, because of cause and effect. If that's seen as separate from emptiness, which is some kind of absolute truth, beyond this, if they're seen as two different things, that's wrong. Then someone hasn't understood. The emptiness of phenomena I've showed you is part of their dependent arising. They're not two different things. So we're not trying to escape from the samsara in the way that, from an obvious reading of this thing, you would think. Escaping from the cycle of rebirth isn't to go to some other place. It's to understand the experience in a different way. It's to understand that dependent arising and to understand cause and effect. That takes one out of the cycle to a kind of freedom, to a freedom from it. Sometimes I don't like to say the words freedom. Always, I don't like to be sort of using hyperbolic words and exaggerate things. But so that, we have this notion in Western philosophy of noumenon and phenomena. Noumenon being some absolute truth like a god or Buddhahood or nirvana. And then there's this world that's all bad and imperfect. And the relative, where everything seems to be solid, seemingly, and we all agree with that, and is suffering, and that they're both different. That the emptiness of phenomena and the dependent arising are different. And of course, if you understand things that way, then you get to the point some people can go towards an amoralism. And I've seen this a lot. And they think it doesn't matter what you do because, of course, there's emptiness. There's no real consequence. You've transcended the cause and effect, this kind of law that there is in a way. This kind of description. No. The emptiness and that in a way, emptiness talks about this. That if you examine this constant dependent arising, you will find the very, very profoundest level that nothing arises and nothing ever ceases. This is the absolute truth. If you examine with dependent arising, nothing arises and not anything ceases. The ultimate truth is to experience, some called nirvana, a kind of, for a moment, to experience the unborn. But that unborn, then, if there is such a thing, is not a separate place. It is the nature. It's not separate from the dependent arising. This is we could demonstrate through understanding the dependent arising that although there appear discrete things, and although there appears like there's dependent arising, in actuality, there is no arising and no ceasing ever. And yet there's ever-flowing change, a river of change, always. And yet nothing ever arose and nothing ever died. And when we come into contact with that and see that and have confidence in that, there's a real transformation of the person. But they're not in contradiction. This law of karma is not in contradiction to this absolute truth of nothing dependently, of nothing arising and nothing dying. So it doesn't mean that we're not careful with what we do, because someone who understands that sees that. The flow of cause and effect of all the different objects that would seemingly block each other out does not contradict this truth of unborn, unceasing truth, this unborn unceasingness. And if they're seen as separate, then one has not realized the Buddha's intent. If these two realizations are happening simultaneously, without alternation. That means that when one way you could say, if we live in this world without any attachment to it and without being part of it, or if we go to the magic show, and okay, in the magic show, there's a magician. He takes a rope and he makes it look like a snake. The first stage of understanding this, on some level, is we see, this is an old example that I've used many times, maybe I should find a better one. First of all, you start to see, oh, you're not taken in by the illusion. You know that it's a rope, but it's the beginning, maybe you'll still see it's a snake. This might be a beginning level bodhisattva, or what's called in some traditions a stream enterer, has some beginnings of enlightenment. But he may still see the snake, but he knows that someone has made it look like a snake. Even the magician may see the snake too, but he knows too. You know, we're like that. We're like the magician. But then later, deeper, he doesn't. At first, intellectually, you should understand that these two truths don't alternate. But a Buddha sees he knows what it's like. Someone will know what it looks like all the time. It will never be taken in. They are not fooled one bit. They see the way it is all the time. Now, an ordinary person, even Dalai Lama says he's still like this, will see in meditating, they may see the ultimate truth and will be able to rest in it. But then when they walk around, they may get taken in to some extent. And lots of times not be careful with what they do, and lots of times, get upset with some people hassling them or this and that. Whatever. That's not bad. That's okay. They'll laugh at them, so you'll laugh at yourself too for being taken in. That's okay. That's the way it is. But what's said is that on deeper levels of realization, there won't be an alternation between the two. That meditating and not will be the same. They'll see it all the time. They'll understand it. Maybe a little bit they might get annoyed, but they won't be taken in constantly or get too neuroticized or made crazy by the things. So from merely seeing dependent origination as completely unbetraying, so seeing dependent origination really clearly, the definite ascertainment comes that completely destroys the way in which all objects are apprehended as truly existent. At that time, the analysis of the ultimate view is complete. So one understands really deeply that not that nothing exists. That doesn't mean that nothing exists. It means truly existent. That means truly existent. Well, this is a microphone always for everybody, regardless of where they are. That this is always going to be a microphone, and that this is a microphone is independent from the perceiver, and that it exists on its own, separate and solid. That's what they mean by truly existent, and not a dependent arising and blocking everything else. It doesn't mean they don't think that nothing exists and that everything is empty, and that there's nothing, and that it's all a dream. No. Okay. Now, furthermore, appearance eliminates the extreme of existence. This is making a very interesting point. There are two philosophical views that we have. I could state them in a philosophical way, but I think you can see personality types that fit into them. There's a view that we have of nihilism and another view of eternalism. Nihilism is, I'll finish soon. Nihilism is that nothing that we do matters. That everything is chaos, and so then cause and effect doesn't matter. We don't have to be careful about our actions, and that everything is a complete accident, and there's no sense to it, totally. So we don't have to be careful. It doesn't matter if I screw you, kick you in the bum, the ass, hit you. It doesn't matter. Then I'll go on to do something nice the next day, and then later on I could cheat somebody. Well, it doesn't matter because it's just, that could be the result of nihilism. And then I guess I would want to look after myself to the best of my extent and have a nice time all day. What's that song? I forget what it is. Something about a rock song about the tune didn't come to me. About you can only have it once, so get the most you can, sort of thing. Okay, now then there's eternalism. Okay, that's another opposite. That means that everything is very real and solid. And one result of that could be to think very much in a theistic God, let's say, that punishes everybody. So then everything is very serious. Now, so that means that a person who has that kind of thinking, let's say their ethics would be, I'm not supposed to steal because I'll be punished, or because it says it in the book, or God will punish me, or it's wrong and it's bad. It's not because, of cause and effect, and not necessarily because they have some ethical sense. Our actions will be weighed later, and there are very fixed rules. Because sometimes, some of these precepts we need to break in one way in order to hold them. So, we have to, anyway, an eternalist thinks that everything is very real and is very kind of serious. Or that they think, now both of these are both extremes. They're, the extremes of yes and no. And we find this all the time. If I explain this to someone, these kind of things, lots of times, of course you want to figure it out and understand it. But also, lots of times, if you tell people about meditation, let's say, or other spiritual things, they'll want to all be stuck on what's the goal of it and try to understand it in some kind of fixed way. And a lot of what I say, and a lot of this stuff is paradoxical. Two opposites can coexist together in a way. Things aren't just always yes and no.
Like
But
love
most
and
of us,
detachment?
what?
Like love and detachment?
Yes. They're opposite? No, not really. People think that they are. Yeah, they're not. They don't, love doesn't necessarily mean strong attachment in the same way that people think. Actually, if someone who has understood the emptiness and has no attachment, very little, will be filled with compassion. That's the essence of understanding emptiness, is compassion. Compassion. Most. They'll be an embodiment of compassion. Truly. They will not be mean and nasty to people. Impossible. If someone doesn't have any, on some level, they don't understand these things. Certainly not. It is a natural outgrowth. If anyone wants to ask you sometimes in the most simple way, if you want to explain to a person what is the wisdom mind, then they would say go to the essence of compassion. I mean compassion in a very deep way. Appearance eliminates the extreme of existence and the understanding of emptiness. Emptiness eliminates the extreme of non-existence. So someone who understands emptiness sees that the emptiness is a fullness, sees that ultimate truth as being the presence of all that we see. The panoply of visions, colors, they would see them maybe, this is to use a tantric term, as a pure realm. They don't see their experiences as bad. They see it as very pleasant, and the experience is an expression of the absolute truth. So those two things don't eliminate each other, and they don't block each other. So this doesn't mean to run away and hide in a hut either forever, right? And forget everyone else. That would be a very awful thing. This means that though our vision is transformed, and so emptiness is not non-existence. It actually, understanding emptiness eliminates the extreme of non-existence, and understanding interdependence eliminates the extreme of existence. If you realize how emptiness manifests in the manner of cause and effect, then you are not captivated by wrong notions holding extreme views. The extreme views are attachment to nihilism or eternalism, or there's one that's very, very hard to get. The tetralemma, that all we have the world around us. Now, we were discussing this just now. Do things exist? Don't exist? Neither exist nor non-exist, or both exist and not exist. The world around us are phenomena. Do things have some? This is a question of philosophers and a question of meditators. All of these views are all wrong. The ultimate truth, the absolute truth, is beyond these views. If you have any view and try to label the experiences one way or another, you can demonstrate, someone else can demonstrate how it's wrong. That's kind of the ultimate truth. It's beyond talking about it, and it's like being a mute. But that ultimate truth does not contradict the relative. In this way you realize exactly, that's the part-on view might be difficult to understand and has to be meditated on, certainly. But if you realize in this way you realize exactly the vital points of the three principal aspects of the path. Resort to seeking solitude to generate the power of effort and quickly accomplish your final goal, my child. That's that. Now, I hope that you can say something, perhaps, and maybe to ask me something about this. This doesn't tell you quite how to do it, but I'll come back in about a week and a half, and then maybe, or not, I don't know about here, no, but over to Flo's store. And then there I was showing them a little part, one part of the puzzle of how to do it. Although this does tell you how to do it. I could, over time, I guess, go through it in detail of the path of, this is really about the path of practice. Well, nothing?
Were we going to introduce ourselves?
Sure. Oh, that would be fun. Yes. That's better. I think that some of you. How long has the tape been going now, Suka? What's the time on it? Okay. Yeah, so I went an hour and a half. Yeah, introduce yourselves, please do that. I won't. Maybe if I should hold this in the middle, but I won't move the camera because I didn't get you all to sign a release. Right, that's what when you join the public school system, they get you to sign a release. Whether or not you want to be included, if in the unlikely occasion that someone from the news media might come to the school. Oh, they're very careful about that. They have to sign releases. The principals will make, they don't want to be sued. Right? Anyone comes.
There's a lot of lawyers in the lower Bardo.
Yeah. Oh, you know about these words, the Bardo. Okay, you're familiar. Then you know this poem? With the lingo.
I don't know about the poem.
Oh, you've never seen the poem. The three principal paths. Tsongkhapa is famous. You know who Tsongkhapa was then? When you use this word Bardo, you know some of these buzzwords.
It's a buzzword, yeah, it's a buzzword. Yeah.
Bardo just means in between.
In between.
Yeah, so we're in the Bardo of awake, between deep sleep and the period between the sleep and going to sleep the next day, and dreams. Mm-hmm. Right, this is the Bardo. And then dreams is the Bardo between being awake and the deep sleep. And then there's the deep sleep, which is the Bardo between dreams and being awake. Lots of Bardos.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a word that just means in between. Yeah, that's all. What? Yeah. Oh, introduce yourselves. Yes.
I'm Sean, and
Oh, you live around here. How'd you find out about the talk? Did you find out about her store?
she left we left a poster, right? I guess I saw the poster. I've been to Buddhist talks
Where?
before in different places just north of Seoul, and it was an international monastery, like just for the day. I
Oh,
didn't
so it had
spend
lots of
time there.
American people and
Yeah, it
Europeans
was
there.
It was an American top. What do you call the top guy? the top monk was American.
He was American?
Yeah, it is
Oh,
sort of
so-
an international monastery.
Oh, so he must have been a student of Sung San.
Yeah, he was very interesting. Again, I don't want to like label myself as a microphone or a Buddhist or anything, but I'm just interested in it.
Maybe he came there from the United States. There was a Korean Zen master who taught in the United States, and then towards the end of his life went back to Korea and established a place for people here to go and practice.
Yeah, it was full of it's English speaking, right? So it was interesting because it was on the day of the that night when we went home back to the hotel. It was the day of that tsunami that happened a couple few years ago.
In Thailand.
In Thailand, we were in a different place.
Yeah, you were in
but we
Korea.
just had done this thing, and all of a sudden there's this big disaster happening.
Yeah. Oh, so he would be a student of Sung San. Maybe one of his main
I remember
ones.
one of the things that I remember him saying was, instead of we're looking at this really beautiful big Buddha statue, and he says forget about the Buddha statue, pretend it's a giant mirror.
Yeah, it's a mirror.
It's a
That's
big mirror, right?
yes, that is the analogy that will constantly be used.
Yeah, the mirror.
It's a mirror pointing to yourself.
Yeah. So if you break the mirror, it's okay because it's impermanent anyway. But anyways,
Oh, okay.
I don't know, maybe not.
No. That is an analogy that's used constantly. But also the people prostrate to the statues too. So are they doing idol worship or
Right.
not? I don't know.
Right.
Yes and no. It appears like they are, but maybe they're not. You see, that is the paradox. A paradox. Oh, these things that they're sitting on is part of the stock of the store, is it?
A couple things are. Not
Oh,
just
you don't
the
have
clothes.
you don't have those big reed mats here,
No.
like they sell, that you can put on floors. I'd like to get some of those. I don't know where to pick them up in Vancouver. Everyone's got them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
You know,
Just
yeah.
the everything sitting on the floor.
The mats, the reed mats that you put.
I've seen that.
This is
The Lao Temple
That's the card.
in Vancouver has lots of them. I want to know where I should
It's
get
like a
them.
Buddhist bank card, just put it in for karma points or something. I don't know the code anymore.
Do you have credit?
I don't have any credits.
I just
I'm
caught
not-
the last.
Yeah.
I should talk with you later and then keep in contact with you. If you go there, if you could get lots of stupas, maybe I could help you to sell them. I don't need them.
I don't know
Lots
if you
of
would know.
friends who may want them.
There, it would.
You could get rid of maybe a few. I don't
That's
know.
all we're trying to do.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we were just introducing ourselves, so.
My name's Roger.
Oh, Roger.
Roger met the Dalai
I'm from
Lama.
Yellowknife.
Huh? Oh, from Yellowknife. Oh, he met the Dalai Lama once. Oh, that's cute. Well, nice. Where?
Vancouver, 2004.
You met Dalai Lama?
Oh, in 2004 when they come there. What was he doing there then? Oh, that was when he gave the big talk in the Coliseum.
Yeah.
And then the Geshe was in front afterwards saying that they didn't, that was done by UBC that time. And then that Geshe came to the front, a monk, and cried a little bit because they didn't do an accounting of the money yet. I remember after the talk. And then he asked him to come back and do an initiation. Oh, yeah. Right? Anyway, he gave a talk in the Coliseum to about
Yeah.
12,000.
For 3 days in a row.
3 days? Oh, he gave 2 talks there. And then he did some other stuff that for which there was, I think, tickets.
Was there other people involved there? Like other famous people with him? Sometimes he has like.
Tutu.
Oh, Tutu.
That was at a separate event.
Oh, okay.
There was a conference for which there were tickets that went on for 3 days. And then apart from that, there was one big talk. That was inexpensive. No, I don't know if it was inexpensive or there were no tickets at the Coliseum. I forget. That was before I became a monk again. I remember now. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so then you met him there. Oh, I wonder how that would have happened because, of course, there's lots of security and he has no time for interviews now. Not like when he came to Calgary in 1980 when I went to his hotel room.
You didn't have
With
any
some people.
security.
No, no.
He wasn't
I brought
that
some
involved.
people to his hotel room who wanted to take precepts and become sort of a monk, but not quite. Some Vietnamese people. So then we just went up to his hotel.
It was easy to meet back then. Didn't have,
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Well, not easy to meet, but me, because I was wearing these robes, then they let me in.
Right.
And because I took some people who needed to meet him, who wanted to, then it was not a problem to do. No, it wouldn't have been just for anybody.
But back then, the Dalai Lama, if he came to town back in 1980, wasn't a big media event like it ended up being later.
Not as much, no,
Not
no.
much.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
No, nothing like that. No,
Yeah.
no, no. No, he was in a room in a hotel in Calgary, and I think there were lots of people going in there and seeing him all day.
Yeah.
Now they don't allow it. He just has no time.
Yeah.
If the people want to talk with him, they just go and see him when he's at home. That's all. That's not such a big deal. Just anyone who wants to see him, who has business with him, will just go see him when he's in India. But here, no, they just completely. It's too. There's just too much to do. The schedule doesn't allow it. And then in the United States, they have lots of security from the State Department and vetting. If you sit close, like even someone like me, they want to know who you are. They make up a list before.
Is it because of the Chinese?
No, it's
rule?
this is any. No, it could be just anybody.
Could be anybody.
Sure, they don't want an embarrassing situation where someone would throw a pie at a visiting dignitary, which could happen at any time there. Or go and hassle them or shake them or other kinds of things. Oh, that's easy. That happened. That's happened here many times.
Yeah.
Like when the Prime Minister of the Soviet Union once came here, someone rushed him when he was at the airport and tried to grab him.
Yeah.
See, and then that becomes a big incident and very, very, very not nice thing to happen. Oh, so you got to see him. How was that then? Or talk to him? Or did you impersonally meet him for a moment? How'd that happen? In 2004? Yeah. Oh, you were that event. You were at that event at UBC. That was done. There was an interfaith event at UBC.
Coliseum.
Oh, okay, at the Coliseum.
It isn't a bodyguards. I don't see there's no bodyguards.
Oh,
Monks.
no, there's lots outside of that. There's lots of these guys outside.
So I didn't know there were bodyguards. Said no, no, no. One said no, no.
Yeah.
And he said okay. You know, so he said,
Oh, so you somehow were near where he passed by.
yeah.
No, when he was here the last time, and they brought in these sniffer dogs, and then checked everything out, and no one could carry in cell phones, and leave their bags at the front. He was giving a talk to the Tibetans. I was there with a bunch of course, they put us monks up at the front, and then he gets, rushed in and then rushed out. None of them even talk with him, and many of them know him personally, but they don't get a chance because he doesn't. Okay. Then, that's interesting how that happened. Unique experience. I don't know when he'll come back again. But the person who taught my 3-year retreat, who set it up, he was one of his teachers. I don't know how important the teacher. I mean, there's many who are of more importance, but certainly he was one of his teachers. Certainly, he taught him all the Shangpa things and Kala Chakra. He gave it one of his teachers for Kala Chakra. He would have given him instructions. He had taught him probably back in the 60s. He was invited to where he lived in Dharamsala, and also he would have probably taught some of his teachers, and also they would have asked him for things that he had. Then let's go further, I suppose. I don't hope I won't be the chairman here. It can be as much.
Hi, Cindy.
Yes,
Hello,
yes.
students.
Okay.
Students of,
Yeah.
Right now, Mama Sibylline has accepted me as a student of military.
Oh, drink. I wonder if this will work.
I'm Megan. Came here because Dina invited me. That's about it. I haven't done much